Ann, are you on?
I've muted her.
Okay.
We are muted now. Hold on. Joe, make sure. You can hear? All right. We're unmuted now. Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to get this meeting started. Thank you so much for your patience. I know this is a brand-new thing for us, and it's taken some time, but I appreciate everybody getting on the call early and your patience in getting the call started. Obviously, this is a regular commissioners meeting of the City of Rehoboth Beach, and I'm going to call this meeting to order formally right now. And I'll call it to order with a roll call. If you can answer as I call your name, that would be very helpful. Commissioner Byrne?
Here.
Commissioner Gay?
Here.
Commissioner Schlosser?
Here.
Commissioner Coluzzi?
Here.
Commissioner Sheffer?
Here.
Commissioner Schwazansky?
Here.
And the mayor is here, and again, as stated, the city manager is here with me, the solicitor, Mr. Mendelis, is here, and then a number of different people from the staff. So again, welcome to this meeting. And the meeting is to consider adoption of the city budget for the fiscal year April 1, 2020 through and including March 31, 2021. And again, as the vote hopefully will pass today, this budget will go into effect as of April 1, 2020. With that, I'm going to just turn it over to the city manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Commissioners. Today, we have a budget presentation This is based on four prior meetings that were held with the mayor and commissioners and the public, starting in the month of January, continuing in February, and the last meeting actually was held on March 9th, 2020. Today, I'm presenting a balanced budget. The total amount of the budget, $25,921,674, is again a balanced budget. We have included in that portion is capital outlays for the general fund and the two enterprise funds, the water fund and the wastewater fund. The total of the capital outlays is $5,474,573. Most of that, a high percentage of that is made up in the general fund capital outlays at $3,202,573. The budget includes various capital improvements that we went through in the four prior meetings that we've had, based on, as of right now, that all of those capital improvement items that became, I'll say, a priority that we went through, and urgent needs, certainly that we went through in the past meetings, are made up in that capital improvement portion. The water and wastewater funds, of course, stand themselves. They are enterprise funds, and they are paid for, if you will, through fees that the public is paid into those enterprise funds. So I'm prepared to say today, based on the circumstances that we have here and throughout the country, that much of the $3,202,000 in the CIP for the general fund, we are prepared to defer until the fall to see where we are with the season as this pandemic hopefully passes and we can get to the end of it. We can hopefully see to the end of it. So we have over $2 million in earmarked projects in the CIP that will not start until the fall. It's quite possible that we'll have some design for these projects throughout the summer months, but the projects will not start until the fall as we see our way, hopefully, to the end of the pandemic. In addition, as is usual practice, on a biweekly basis and certainly on a monthly basis, the operating budget is monitored. Each department head knows their responsibility in monitoring their own expenses. The finance director and I monitor the budget on a regular basis, and certainly we can adjust the budget accordingly throughout the next months if need be. And that includes not spending. It could include temporarily laying off employees, or at least putting them on notice. We're cutting back on employees. We really don't know what the situation will be in the next coming months. We have to prepare for bad times, but we also have to prepare for good times. We have approximately 150 to 200 seasonal folks that we have in the queue waiting to be hired. If it becomes necessary not to hire them, certainly we wouldn't be doing that. But as of right now, this budget would begin April 1st for the fiscal year, starting April 1st, 2020.
Thank you very much, Sharon, that was very helpful. I think now we will go to specific questions that any of the commissioners may have. Again, this is new technology we're using, and I will call on you specifically as we see your hand up. Okay. And so the first question I see is from Commissioner Szyznowski. Go ahead, Edward.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, City Manager Lynn, and your staff. I do appreciate you all being proactive and looking at what can be deferred until the fall so we can continuously evaluate this. And I think we're going to have to revisit the budget multiple times this year as we see how things progress. So I've got a couple questions, City Manager. I'll ask all of them and then let you respond. One is in terms of the city manager and her staff has the authority to spend this money, obviously, once the budget is approved. I guess I'd like to know on a continuous basis how you intend to keep us as commissioners and the public informed on what has continued to be deferred on an ongoing basis to the fall, and what monies you have spent thus far on a monthly basis in terms of capital improvement projects. So that's question number one. Question number two is, I just would like some clarification. My understanding is based on the budget highlights of as of March 20th, that we still have revenues in excess of expenses in the amount of $96,443, which could be earmarked towards a project or a budget expense, but has not yet. And then I will make two more questions. One, my third question is the Grove Park Canal Access Dock project is still on the budget for $280,000. My understanding is that change orders have come in, so I'm wondering why that amount has not yet been reduced in the budget. And my fourth comment I'll say is I still, after hearing from a lot of constituents, some of the former administration as well, I am wholeheartedly against the alterations to the City Hall reception desk project. And again, would like that to be removed until we can further talk to the staff and understand what their concerns and needs are and look at other ways that we can provide for their safety and well-being and concerns. So those are my questions, comments, and I'll shut up now.
Commissioners, I'll take the last question first, and the funding for the security at the front lobby area. As I said last time, we are taking a second look at that to see if that funding can be reduced in some way, that we can alter the description of what was laid out for us with the architect, at the same time in trying to have the safety concerns from staff taken into consideration. So that's certainly something that is still in the budget, but it would be looked at carefully. The next portion that Commissioner Szyznowski brought up, next question, regards what you see as a deficit of $96,443 in the column under the general fund budget. Uh, So the city's past practices have been to arrive at a balanced budget, adding the surpluses and deficits from each fund, making sure that they add up to zero. What you see in there is not indicative of a deficit. It clearly is part of the balanced budget. So, you know, it's an accounting issue that really is not, those funds of 96,000 are really not available to be used. As far as keeping you updated, as you know, we provide a monthly budget summary to you. We'll continue to do that on a monthly basis. If need be, we can do that on a biweekly basis. That certainly wouldn't be an issue for us to do that. Again, on a at least biweekly basis, the finance director and I sit down and look at all the expenses and all the revenues and discuss that. We can provide that detail to you on a regular basis as well. So it's really nothing that we haven't done before. We do it continually throughout the year. The department heads, as I've said, are responsible for their budgets, and they are aware that they cannot certainly go over their budget, and they will also be aware that depending on how the situation continues here with the coronavirus, they will each know that the budget will be closely monitored. The 280,000, and I know I'm taking this out of order, Commissioner Chanowski, the 280,000 is still present in the budget. We do have change orders that, you know, become a moving target for that amount on a regular basis. But that initial funding is in the budget because that is what was voted on and included as part of the general construction bid from the contractor. So we have to have that amount, the same amount for the bid. If during the construction period, you know, and that hasn't started yet, we will receive regular invoices. If that comes about where we do have decreased expenses, you'll certainly see that. We'll provide that to you on a regular basis as well.
Thank you, City Manager. The next hand I see up is Commissioner Schlosser, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mayor. And again, to the city manager and her staff, you know, thank you for all the work you've done on the budget, particularly in the midst of everything else happening. And by the way, great job on managing what's happening here in our city, and across the nation. Thank you. I have 3 questions and a couple comments. So I'll do what my fellow commissioner did and ask all 3 of them, Sharon, and then I have you answer them. One, the press reported that this year's budget is, I think, $3 million over last year's budget, and I pretty much understand why, but I'd love for you just to talk that through so there's good public understanding of why the budget's larger this year than last year. Secondly, you addressed the dock. The other thing is, I would like to understand too, if you'd be willing, and I'm open to other comments from other commissioners, to basically, come to us, maybe not necessarily for approval, but ahead of time for any expenditures that are over a certain amount at this point in time, particularly related to any kind of design or anything else, within the capital budget. And maybe that'll be solved by just putting you on the agenda for a budget update for every meeting. But I'd just like to hear your kind of feedback on on how we can get the best information there. And then you touched on it, you did, but I think I'd like a little more specificity on, specifics on what and when you're going to be spending. Last comment is I also want to reinforce my concern, or underscore my concern again with the proposed expenditure for the front desk. I think that am I still on? Okay. Am I still?
Yes,
Can
you're
everybody
still on.
Okay, because something went quiet, so it sounded like something went. And last comment is I do want to reiterate what my fellow commissioner said about the front desk alterations. I am very concerned about that. It came through at the last minute as a priority in the capital budget. B, I think it totally sends the wrong tone, the wrong image as to what we are as a city in terms of hospitality. And three, there doesn't seem to be really any data. I talked to some folks from who were here during the build of the city hall, and was told, and I don't know the details, that it actually wasn't part of the plan originally, and that there was discussion about it, and it was pretty firm that no one wanted to move forward with that because of the hospitality aspect. So I don't know if the other commissioners have had any feedback since there was consensus last meeting on that, but I'd also like to hear from the other commissioners as they ask questions, if anybody's changed their mind there. So that's my comments and my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schlosser. To answer your questions in the best order that I can come up with, I believe number one was the $3 million over last year's budget. It's not exactly correct in that approximately $1,500,000 of that was part of a loan return that is deposited back in the bank. So that's half of that $3 million that was explained by the finance director. He made the decision to use that for this current fiscal year. The notice to the commissioners for any amount over planned expenditures. So as the city manager, my responsibility is to manage the budget and manage it as fiscally responsibly as I can. I'll reiterate that I do that on a regular basis, and I will certainly report that to you as do that regularly at your meetings or in email form on a weekly basis, however you would like that. But that's totally one of the bigger responsibilities that I would say a professional manager has in managing the budget, and you can certainly rely on me to do that. The front desk security, I'll say it again, we had 2 classes in, defensive training, if you will, and what staff needs to do in case a disgruntled subject would come into the front desk. And based on those trainings, we did have that in the budget all along. They were deferred items. We brought that to the front because just the week prior to the meeting, on your last meeting on March 9th, I believe it was, March 10th, there was another training, and staff requested that come to the forefront based on the day and age we're living in. So as far as data to support the project, I think that there's enough data out there where we can just look at other municipalities and other parts of the country that have had very, emergency events, I'll say, where, security was at risk. We certainly don't want to be in that. Why it wasn't included as part of the project from the beginning, it was discussed, it was put in with an amount. Of course, this amount is higher because that was 4 or 5 years ago now, and it was removed from the project by the former administration.
Back to Edward, probably.
Thank you very much, Sharon. The next hand I see up is Edward again.
City Manager, I just want to follow up. I appreciate the fact that the canal project has to stay in for the amount that was approved and is part of the original contract. But just for our knowledge and the easement of the public, can you tell us about how much of a decrease some of those change orders have come in to lower the cost of the project, even though we're still budgeting for the full amount? Just what we can expect a little bit on what has been happening thus far with the change orders, and not, we won't hold you to the amount. I just, just a rough guess is fine.
So I'd hate to make a rough guess and be incorrect, to give incorrect information out. What we have done is we've, the landscape architectural firm who's assisting with this, Mr. Spong is putting out RFPs to the contractor. The contractor will then in turn respond accordingly through his subcontractors, and if there is a savings, any savings to be that the city could see, those should come back rather quickly, and I would think certainly before the project starts. He's trying to get started as quickly as possible. He's done some environmental testing there, but as far as I know, the project is on schedule. He's ordered supplies, and he's ready to begin the project. I could tell you that, maybe $50,000 to $100,000 at this time, but that's the best that I can do.
Thank you, Sharon. The next hand I see up is Commissioner Gay, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Before I make any general comments about the budget, since I've been asked for our opinions about some of the questions that have been raised already, let me start by addressing the front desk construction and the security measures there. First of all, my opinion of them have not changed since the last meeting, especially since I reflected on the fact that our police station, as well as the parking building, as well as the old building and licensing building, which the chamber now uses, has such security measures. And in fact, our old building, the very old building that was torn down before the new city hall was built, had it as well. So, it's not new. And I will say that I am so grateful for all of the work that city manager and her staff have done in their diligent efforts to keep us safe and informed during the current crisis. And I would just say that I think this security measure is part of her ongoing efforts to keep the city staff safe, even when there's not a crisis. So I'm still in support of that. I will also say that I think the city would actually have a big liability, especially having discussed it. If there ever were a problem and we discussed and dismissed a security measure, I think that would give us an extra liability. Overall, I am pleased with the budget that we've hammered out over 4 long meetings and with public input. I had a number of people ask me questions about this canal dock as well, so I appreciate both the questions that have been asked today as well as the answers, and I know that project is somewhat in flux. I will just say that based on the last chart we saw when we voted on it, even though we put $280,000 into the budget, we actually only have $800,000 in hand. And there was an additional 275 and change, I think, still to come in pledges. So my concern is that we, the city, are taking on a contract of 1.35 million or 1.2 million with 100,000 in contingency, and we are missing actually more than the 280. That's more my concern right now than whatever cost savings. And I know I'm confident that the city staff will be looking at that going forward. I think we need to, I appreciate having the monthly updates. I will certainly be looking to the city manager to guide us in reevaluating the budget as we move forward. And I think we need to look both at short-term needs and long-term impacts. And, you know, when I look at the budget as a whole, I just see that we've made such great progress with our infrastructure improvements over the last several years. And I don't want to give up on those. And so we need to be very careful about prioritizing on spending on capital improvements going forward. I do think that in addition to the monthly reports, we might want to think about reconvening within 60 days to really hash out some of these issues that may or may not become difficult in the months ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Gay. Commissioner Sheffer, I see up next, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. Lynn, as our city manager. I think this is one of those rare times that I would like to err on the side of being repetitious and commend you and your team for the great work that you do in the best of times. And certainly you show your incredible talent and expertise and capabilities during times like this when there's a lot of uncertainty. I thank you again for the very detailed budget. I don't know if I could say it as well as Commissioner Gay did, but I believe that there is good reason to explore what can be done to provide better safety measures at the front desk. We read in the national newspapers every week about something that isn't expected to happen that happens, and that people who have been historically in safe places are no longer in safe places, and that's the reality of our society today. And I am very hopeful and trustful that whatever solution is determined will be mindful of our desire to be hospitable to our residents as well as visitors who would come into City Hall. And I thank you for the updates on the current status of the funding for the Canal Improvement Project. And I know that you will provide updates as they become available so that we're well aware of how that's progressing. And so thank you for all of that. I don't have any questions. I just wanted to show my support for some of the things that are before us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Sheffer. The next hand I see up is Commissioner Taluzzi, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mayor and City Manager. These are very trying times, and I know that kudos to the City Manager and staff for doing what they've been doing. I don't have any questions, but I do have two comments. One is, I look at last year and I look at the performance in terms of managing the budget by the City Manager, and I'm completely confident that the budget being managed for this year will be managed in the way that it has been, and that's been very, very, very well. So I'm just wanted to make that comment. And as far as the protection of the staff at City Hall, it's already been said by the City Manager that they're going to look at a different project perhaps than what was proposed. Which I would think would be a great idea. And Commissioner Gay was right. Every other city office has, as I believe, I think every single one, does have some sort of protection for the staff. So I look forward to seeing something that is not like the police department, but something that the staff will feel comfortable with. So thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Commissioner Byrne, please.
Yeah. Hi, Mayor. Am I coming through?
Yes, you are. I can hear you fine.
And he dropped.
Somehow you just dropped off.
No, hold on.
If you
Okay,
all-
am I done?
Oh, no. Somehow, can you hear me, Dick?
Yes.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay, just to reiterate a few things that have been said and to enter on the record with these items. A huge thanks to Sharon and her team during this unprecedented time. It's amazing what you've been able to accomplish as the world has changed and will continue to change very fast into this new normal. Moving on to the budget, overall, I'm very supportive of the proposed budget and the one that we achieved some consensus on just a few weeks ago. I'm supportive of the new security measures in the front of City Hall. And yes, I'm also concerned that we continue to be an open, friendly City Hall. And I don't think one excludes the other. And the design of this could be done in a way that provides security in this day and age and also continues being an open and friendly kind of an environment. I'm really pleased that City Manager and Kevin Williams have earmarked $2 million plus in capital projects to be delayed until the fall so that we have adequate time to really monitor closely the revenue flow in the coming weeks and months. And I have a lot of confidence in our city manager to stay on top of this, to communicate on a very regular basis with us, and to red flag anything at all that we need to consider. So I think that is it. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner Byrne. Commissioner Gay, you had a question?
Not a question. I wanted to ask if you were ready for a motion, because I saw that everybody else had spoken, except you.
Looking up on the screen, I don't see anybody else's hand up. Commissioner Schlosser, you just went up. So Commissioner Gay, if you can hold on, please.
Absolutely.
Mayor and fellow commissioners and city manager and team, I really appreciated the feedback, and I want to make a point that I actually also have. I think the city managers has done an outstanding job in managing the budget in the 2 years that I've been a commissioner, and I have no lack of confidence whatsoever in that her continued ability. I'm only asking for increased transparency and briefings to get the facts out to the public regarding where we are on the budget. So that's really the only reason I'm asking for, those, kind of specific updates at all our meetings. I just think the public, deserves to kind of hear the updates given kind of the state of where we are. So, but I did want to make sure that it was on the record that I just think the city manager actually oversees and manages and makes good decisions about the budget overall, and puts those reports out on a monthly basis. I know I actually do read them. I'm a budget geek, so I like to read them. So that's one thing. The second thing, and I hate to prolong this anymore, but I would like to just ask that that we actually see the options for the front desk before we actually make an expenditure, so that we can at least talk through and let the public know kind of what we're doing. So I would just like to ask Sharon if that's something that she'd be willing to do, if and that would allow me to support the overall budget. and then that specific line item. So Sharon, would you be willing to at least come up with the options and show us before contracts let on that project?
Commissioner Schlosser, I would do nothing short of that. With all of the conversation about this in the past 45 minutes, I certainly would not do anything without passing by the schematics to you, the amount of money, the plan. You certainly have my word on that. To Commissioner Gay's question about the reports, absolutely, the reporting, will be done on a frequent basis. Any reports that you would like, we'll provide them to you. We're as transparent as can be here. Everything is notably recorded, and certainly we can provide any reports to you whenever you want that. As I said, at meetings, in between meetings, any time that you request something, you'll have it.
Oops, sorry about that. Thank you, City Manager. I don't see any other hands up, so no more questions. I can just put in a couple comments of my own. I really appreciate what the City Manager and her staff has done putting this budget together. They've been working on this one specifically all the way back into September. And I think it's a great budget, and I think we came to some hard decisions, I think, across the board, but I think there's some positive things to go forward. And obviously, as we look at the next 12 months, I'm sure we're going to be analyzing the budget much more so than we have in the past, because this is some trying times. So, but again, I just want to say to the City Manager and her staff, a great job on what you're doing today, but what you've done for the last 6 months putting this together for us. With that in mind, Commissioner Gay, I know you had mentioned that you may want to make a motion. And again, the motion would be to pass the budget as proposed, and that's the budget for the year starting April 1, 2020, going through March 31st, 2021.
Thank you, Mayor. I also just want to say I think we are in uncharted territory here, and at the same time, I think we have, through this meeting and through all the work that the city staff has done, we've mapped out a very good plan forward. So with that, I make a motion to approve the budget to start April 1, 2020 through March 31, 2021, with $25,921,674 in revenue, $20,447,101 in operating expenses, and $5,474,573 in capital expenses.
I second that motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Byrne. We have a motion in front of us and a second to pass the budget as proposed. The numbers that Commissioner Gay just mentioned in her motion. I'm going to go down the line of the commissioners, if you can vote individually, starting with Commissioner Byrne.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Gay.
Yes.
Commissioner Schlosser.
I vote yes, with the caveat that we do have the monthly public discussions on the budget status given the current scenario, and that too, we be briefed on the front desk security options before we get into a contract. So I vote yes with those two assumptions.
Good, and that will be obviously taken care of by the city manager, as she has mentioned. Commissioner Paluzzi.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Sheffer.
I vote yes.
Commissioner Szymanski.
I vote yes with the same caveats that Commissioner Schlosser has mentioned.
Okay, and the chair votes aye. The motion passes. We now have a budget to start April 1, 2020 to go through March 31st, 2021. And fortunately, I think that is it for the meeting. We have nothing else on the agenda. So, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much for everybody.